Good morning, and good morning. It is Monday, July 8th already. I'm just so surprised that we're halfway through the year, more than halfway. Once it gets to July, we're into the second half of the year. And I'm kind of excited about it. Lots going on. I've been able to kind of regroup and get some things done. How are you doing this morning? Um, I've been watching the television and the news and, having some conversations with people and thinking about some of the words that people choose to use all the time. And so the day's word I thought was really, really interesting. So we'll get to that in a minute. But listen, I had to get a totally new phone, totally, only because the one I had decided to give me a white screen, which when I looked it up was called the death screen, the screen of death. And I'm like, what? So anyway, that happened. Let's see, that happened Saturday night, and so I'm troubled. I'm like, okay, I have to get to church, and some people are texting me, "Are you going to do this and that, whatever?" And I said, well, I'm gonna have to make a mad dash after church and see if AT&T store is open. So sure enough, they were, and I went and got a totally new phone. So I'm really able to say I'm back in business. I'm back. I'm back in the saddle again. I can ride. I can ride out my day and not worry about being out of touch. At one time we never thought of phones being that important, like a cell phone, but now a cell phone is basically a part of our lives. It is our everyday. It's probably the most revolutionary, item that has come about that everyone has a need for. Except for babies, little children, they don't need one. But once people start thinking for themselves and obligations and needing to be here and there and everywhere, then it becomes something of a necessity. So, as I said, I did find a new phone, and I'm excited about that. But then, I chose this word today because I thought it was just an interesting word. I've heard several people use it of late, and it is a word that means, basically what it is. It's an exaggeration of what may have happened. You may start out at the business, at the basics, and the basics is real small, but people embellish, or they make it more of their own, and they add things to it, or they subtract things from it. And even in my write up, I apologize for that because I acted like it was just something that could be praised, but it can also be something that could be on the other side. It could be critical. And I changed it on the originating platform, which is StreamYard. And then I realized, oh my, but I've already published it on Facebook, so I couldn't change that one little sentence to say that it also could be on the criticism side as well as being on the praise side. But it certainly is adding more to maybe than what's really going on. And so the word is hyperbole. Hyperbole. And so it's one of those words that once you hear it, you may not understand it at first, but children understand what hyperbole is. Good morning, Debbie, Debbie, Debbie. Hello, my friends. How are you? I dressed up in this bright color just for you. I said, okay, Debbie likes bright. How are you doing? How was your weekend? Did you have a good time? Did you rest up? It was a long weekend, so you know, hoping that you and your family enjoyed it. Great, and you, you're beautiful. Well, I don't know about that part. That part may be wrong, but thank you, thank you, thank you. But today, yes, yes, yes. So you did have a good time. Yeah, I did too. I did too. I kind of chilled a little bit on the fourth. I hung out with some friends and I think I saw my daughter earlier that morning, and I hung up with some friends later in that afternoon. But I was back home by I think 7 o'clock, 7:30, because I needed to get my my rest. And I took off on Friday, so as I said, I had a nice long weekend and got a chance to rest a bit, and so it ended up being good. But today's word is hyperbole, and let me just tell you that if you've ever read any books for children, there was a poet. He's gone now unto glory, but his name was Shel Silverstein. He absolutely made you laugh because he had that childish, almost like one of those books that make things rhyme and reason. So he was just that kind of person. um, so anyway, this book is called this particular poem is called Sarah Cynthia Sylvia Stout by Shel Silverstein. And it says, Sarah Cynthia Silver Stout would not take the garbage out. She'd score the pots and scrub the pans, candy the yams and spice the hams. And though her daddy would scream and shout, she simply would not take the garbage out. And so it piled up to the ceilings: coffee grounds, potato peelings, brown bananas, rotten peas, chunks of sour cottage cheese that filled the can and covered the floor and cracked the window and blocked the door, with bacon rinds and chicken bones, dripping ends and ice cream cones, prune pits, peach pits, orange peel, glumpy glumps of cold oatmeal, pizza crust and withered greens and soggy beans and tangerines and crust of black and burned buttered toast and gritsy bits of beefy roast. The garbage rolled on down the hall. It raised the roof. It broke the wall. I mean, greasy napkins, cookie crumbs, globs of gooey bubble gum, cellophane from green bologna, rubbery blubbery macaroni, peanut butter caked and dried, curdled milk and crusts of pie, moldy melons, dried up mustard, eggshells mixed with lemon custard, cold French fries and rancid meat, yellow lumps of cream of wheat. At last, the garbage reached so high that it finally touched the sky, and all the neighbors moved away, and none of their friends would come and play. And finally, Sarah Cynthia Stout said, "Okay, I'll take the garbage out." But then, of course, it was too late. The garbage reached across the state, from New York to the Golden Gate, and there, in the garbage she did hate. Poor Sarah met an awful fate that I cannot right now relate, because the hour is much too late. But children, remember Sarah Stout and always take the garbage out. And that's from Shel Silverstein, and it was found on Music's Match. But listen, that's funny stuff. That that is funny stuff. That's like how the Grinch stole Christmas, and I eat green eggs and ham, because it always has a rhyming, but it makes it more outrageous than what it really is, because these things didn't really happen. But that's what, when you're having people who have this thing called hyperbole speech, they always make it sound like things were just horrible, or they were really great. They were beyond good. They were fantastic. They were wonderful. And, nobody could say anything about it. That's how wonderful it was. So hyperbole, it says it's exaggerated statements of or claims not meant to be taken literally. But guess what? People do. It says it's exaggeration, overstatement, it's amplification, it's embellishment, overplaying, overkill. I like this word. It's puffy. It's puffy. And it says it is just that. It is an exaggerated statement about what is or really isn't really going on. Do you know people that speak in hyperbole? I do. So when we break the word down, I'm first going to ask you, do you occasionally get stuck on your own hyperbole, making it different than what it really should be, making it like it's better, or it's worse than what you could imagine, or what you give it to people as? Occasionally. Occasionally, because it's calling for it. If it's something playful, I'll do it. But something serious, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that. So when we break the word down this morning, my H is for hype. It is hype. It's absolutely, unadulterated hype. And it says it's exaggerated, it's extravagant, or intensive publicity or promotion. Publicity or promotion. You think about that when you're listening to people. They're either promoting themselves or they're publicly making claims that they want people to listen to. Good morning, Joan. Heckle, yes, 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 yes. Hyped. Oh, you got the word, Debbie. Get it, girl. Joan, good morning to you. Good morning, Miss Rosie. Oh, good morning, Ardelia, the giving tree. Thank you, thank you. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I love you. Love you guys. Good morning, Erica. Did I say hello to you? Hey, Erica. But anyway, so I put down hype, and so hype talks about it being something that we do publicly. It's an advertisement, it's promoting. A lot of times we're promoting us, whoever's doing it, they're promoting themselves, or they're promoting a product, because it is promotion. It could be marketing. Yup. Yup. It could be marketing, it could be propaganda. I remember taking a class one time, and we were studying propaganda because we were trying to determine, or having a discerning idea of which was one or the other. And I remember our, professor saying, so which is it? Is it propaganda, or is it factual? Is it truthful? And sometimes it was hard to come up with if it was really propaganda or not, because if you didn't know the subject areas, then you had to maybe do some research. Most people don't do research, they listen to other people. And so that becomes the source. And so the source may be absolutely putting out propaganda, but you don't know it unless you have studied it for yourself. Have studied it for yourself. So the other thing about hype, it says it's when it's exposure, it's a pushing forward with information. It's plugging, like making a plugging for something or someone, fanfare. I like this. It's razzmatazz, or it's ballyhoo, ballyhoo. And I've heard those words before, but I never paid much attention to them, because they'd probably be words that only if I needed them, I would use them. I'd probably say hype more than I would say these other words. But on the other hand, when you break it down, that's what, Merriam says, that's it. It is all of those other words besides it just being hype. There's a reason for it. When we move on in our word this morning of hyperbole, my Y is for yield, not the yield as in to necessarily yield to something, or bow down or whatever. It says it's give way to arguments and demands or pressure. It's like a lot of times we listen to other people and we accept what they said as it being truthful. And so we yield to them, not bowing down, but yielding in terms of, wow, maybe I need to pay more attention to that. That must be it. Or we just go with what they said. We go with what they said. So it says we may surrender, we may capitulate, we may submit, admit defeat, meaning, yeah, that sounds, your answer sounds better than mine. It says we could concede and just say, okay, I'm gonna let you, that sounds good. It says we'll back down, we'll quit, we'll give in. It says we raise and show, and sometimes we will put up our white flag only because we feel their argument is better. We feel that argument. Yell, yap and yell. Okay. Oh, I like heckle too. I missed that earlier. I like both of those. Yak and yak, because that would be yap and there's a and when I lived in New York, there was a school that I worked at, and they had a band, and I had made up this yak bird. There I go creating something crazy. And the yak, and I would draw it up, and it had, it was cute and everything. Everybody loved it, and I would post it on the outside of the van. And I could barely drive the van. I'm gonna tell y'all right now, that was the propaganda. I was putting out that I could drive that thing, but I could barely get it to where it needed to go downtown and sit a while. I barely made it there, but I did. But I was praying every step of the way. But anyway, the yak bird was just that. It wasn't yapping, it was yakking, and so it had words. I had words coming out of its mouth. But nonetheless, it was in a position to yell, because I would sometimes holler at the kids, "Hey, come on over and listen to what I got." So I've been doing this stuff a while now. So yield also talks about when we decided that we're going to listen to what somebody else has, and we may even adopt it and may become ours only because we listened. Now this is very interesting for my P and hyperbole is purple prose. Purple prose. Like when the prose is when you're doing a prose, is probably pronounced better. Prose, when you're doing a poem, and you may listen to the prose of a poem, and it's talking in a certain way of how it should be delivered. Well, it says a purple prose is that it is too elaborate or ornate. The purple prose means it's above. It's above what it really should be, but people adopt it anyway because they think it has some worth and merit to it, only because it was full of it says boastfulness, exaggeration, amplification, loftiness, um, or rotundity, and twaddle. All of those words. I'm always trying to give y'all new words. Twaddle. I said, man, that's an interesting word, but it basically means, putting out information that sounds good, but it may not be as good as it should be for the discussion. It becomes almost ornamented. It has too much going on, which makes you think that it's not true. But a lot of times we listen to those ornate discussions, and we believe them. We believe them. So, phrases, that's good. The phases of life, and sometimes we may start out at the core, Debbie, where it's good. But as people start adding stuff onto it, it changes up, and all of a sudden it isn't as good as it originally was. So I like that. I like that a lot. We move on in our word. My E is for just that, exaggeration. You know, hyperbole is exaggeration. Exaggeration. Plain and simple. A statement that represents something as better or worse than it really is. Better or worse. This program changes. That's right. That's right. Phases will change. Um, and we don't even realize that sometimes we might be the ones who have to change, by either not listening or not believing everything that we hear. Sometimes we have to do research, and sometimes even what you find may not be the total truth. You have to figure out, where do I fit in between all of this? What they said, what it states, and where I'm at. So it does require us to be owners of our own information, or the information that others gave us. How do we deal with it? What makes sense? So when we're really dealing with exaggeration, we're talking about overstatements, overemphasis. We're just adding a little bit too much on it. We got a little too much spin, Dramatization. Oh, it was so big, and it sat out there, and it made money. Okay. What did it really do? What did it really do? It says also um, aggrandizement, and enhancement and embellishment. So all of those things pretty much are saying, we're gonna make it bigger, and we're gonna make it bigger, and we're gonna make it bigger, and you all are gonna like it when it's real big. Because a lot of times we have a tendency to be bored with small stories, so we want to hear, the the whale story. We want to hear the Empire State Building story. We want to hear the Eiffel Tower story. We want the big stories. We don't want the little stories. And so the little stories somewhat lay dormant, but the big stories get all the attention, and then you find out that they're not true. And, enhance. Yes, that's a good word for the E, an enhancement. That's true. That's absolutely. When we move on in our word for today, we have radical. Radical. How many of us realize that when we're listening to some people, I don't know what that is. When we're listening to people, we have a tendency. This new phone, I don't know how to turn anything off. I don't. So y'all look. I hope it doesn't make too many crazy noises, but I don't know how to. Oh, that's my daughter calling me. She know I'm online. But anyway, when we have radicals, they could be free. It's even in the body. They say free radicals are what make us ill or make us susceptible to illness. So, you have to ask yourself, well, even in that context, how much freedom do we want to give to what we hear from others? Shouldn't we be the ones that import information? Okay, ridiculous and rebuttal. Ooh, that's good. That's really good for a person that I think 2 weeks ago I did debate. That would be really good. Having a rebuttal, being able to call somebody ridiculous or their statements are being ridiculous. But I have, for radical, it says that it's when something is extreme. It may be rabid. It may be fanatical, or to the point where it is just unbelievable. But a lot of times we believe the unbelievable, regardless of what you think. We just feel that we give it much more authority, understanding. We believe it. And a lot of times that's because we want to believe in something. And so we believe in the things that are like Erica just said, ridiculous. How many of us done it? We've done things. We've listened to people and programs. Like, what used to always make me mad is when we took our daughter to Disney when she was little, and every timeshare was in the hotel trying to sell us a timeshare. And I think we started to buy one, and then I started reading up on them. I said, wait a minute, let's go to the library. Let's find out because they didn't have Google back then. So we went to the library, and I said, well, it says a timeshare is, and it says that it gives you the idea that you can go there anytime, but you really couldn't. That you really were dependent on how other people's schedules fell in with yours, but it was like ownership and property that you didn't own. You didn't own it. And so I said, that's just crazy. That why would you pay that kind of money? And it was, I think, even a down payment was, at that time, I think was like $1,300 was the down payment. And then in order for you to really work it out, you would be paying it for years, for years. So for some people, it probably has worked well, because they can use it all the time and they have a system to make it work for them. But I couldn't figure it out to make it work for me. I just never did. So anyway, I say that those extreme things aren't going to work. Good morning, Maurice. How are you, sweetie? Good to see you in the space. My B, oh, and today's word is I can hardly even say it. Hyperbole. Hyperbole. I always get it mixed up in the middle. Hyperbole. And the B in hyperbole is boastful. We know boastful people. We've been in boastful situations where, what they're explaining to us, we believe it sounds good. And then we go check it out later on. It's not as good as it sounded. Okay. It costs more than what they said. Believable. Yes. Yeah. Sometimes we're put in a position where it's what we hear is believable, and so we stay there. We stay with that. So believable really gets us to where people make it that they've been boastful about stuff. They've bragged about it. It says there's a word called crowing, which means boastful. It's almost like they're walking around saying, and you see, I got this going on, and you understand you're gonna make this kind of money. I mean, we've all been in it. We've all seen those folks. You're gonna make this kind of money. And it always reminds me when we would go down to the city when I was little. There was always somebody in Times Square opening up their jacket, talking about, I got any kind of watch you want. They probably didn't even work. We didn't know it, or they just worked long enough for you to leave there. But yes, being boastful. It also talks about it. There's a swaggering to it, and they also call boastful people blowhards, puffed up, ostentatious, cocky, full of oneself. All those things mean boastful. And so when we listen to the word hyperbole, we understand that at some point in time, some of the realness out of what people are saying is really long gone because they're far away from what it really is. But they want to create something which has a tie to it, and the tie-in may be money, it may be position, it may be power, it may be other things, but they're bringing you all of that. Believable and biggity, yes, being biggity. Oh, I like that. Wow, that's cute. That's really cute. Biggity, because they do get biggity now. They get biggity. They tell you what they can do and what you can't do. And you can't do it unless you come to them. You don't, you can't work by yourself. You have to come to them. It just is, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. Now I like this word, and this is a word. It's called orotunity. Orotunity. It's a formal word, and it says the quality of voice or speech of using full and impressive sounds and language. Orotunity. Uh, I met many a person who's probably sold a lot of things based on their orotunity, and we listen to them. We say, "Wow, I'm gonna buy that. I'm gonna sign up for that." We go to conferences and we come away with new books and new things. At the conference, they made sense. We get them home. We say, what was I thinking? And then you read it, and it's the stuff you already had someplace on your computer, on your own bookshelf, on your own notes. But because we listen to what has been confirming to us or made to be understood by us, we fall into it. We buy it. We buy it. So opportunity talks about the bombasticness of, listening to someone who has a good opportunity. They can speak well. They speak wonderfully well. And it says they're clear, they're loud, they're resilient. It says that they have sound, we're listening to them and the sound is just right. It's almost like it's alluring. It says it's going to be rich sound. And it should be a little showy. And tell me y'all haven't seen this, people. And it says it's also stentoration. So when we look at opportunity, we look at the possibility of just being almost mesmerized by somebody who speaks well, somebody who can sell you a car that doesn't work, but you still bought it and it barely made it off the lot. I did that one time, buying a car for my daughter, and I did that, thinking that I knew what I was doing. And we had to basically halfway push the car back from, and we were only up out of Pensacola by maybe 18 miles. We had to probably haul it back 9 miles. They barely made it off their lot and up the road. So sometimes you have to listen to the details and understand when you're being played. And so we were definitely being played, and I didn't know. And eventually, I just said, we just got to get a better car. Um, so bombastic really is a word that to me makes sense because we listen to folks and we like it, and that's how we end up with stuff we don't need. My L for hyperbole is lofty. How many of us have listened to lofty statements? It's elevated in character and spirit. It says we feel there's a nobleness to what we're hearing. It's almost like a prince or a king or a queen, a president is speaking, and every word we hold on to, and it has value. It has value. Um, Obnoxious. Oh my goodness. I love it. Obnoxious. Logical. Obnoxious. Obnoxious is good. So I have a delay for you all that are writing me. I have a delay on my computer, and I imagine because it might be going through different firewalls or whatever to reach my computer. If I don't respond, that's because I don't see it yet. And sometimes I don't see things until after I get off. Um, but I love that. Logical. Obnoxious is good, but illogical, we should be logical. We should be. And so loftiness talks about it being high, tall, towering, eminent, prominent, dominant. And let's look, how many times have we seen people and they might fit all of that? They have a speech that's eloquent and a speech that's alluring and a speech that demands attention. And, at the end, they're signing autographs and all those kinds of things. I'm not going to knock them because, occasionally I've been able to do something, but not in the area where I'm looking at the possibility of basically defrauding people. I certainly wouldn't want to do that. But many people that talk about people that they really listened to and they gave a lot of money, and later on you hear the stories and they said, well, they kept coming back and asking for more money because this wasn't enough, and I needed more to get to this level, and I needed more to get to that level. And I took a couple of those training courses, and they were on speaking and those kinds of things. And I recall that once I finished one level, they tell you how well you did, and then they said, but now you have a third, second, and third level. No, 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 I'm good. I'm gonna stop at the basic level. I'm not gonna move up to the other levels because it's very expensive. When we move on in our word of hyperbole, we talk about embellishment. When we listen to people embellish stories and different things that they do, it says that is their exaggeration. Lies. Oh my goodness, I love it. Lies, logical. Um, Jones said expedite for the E. I have embellishment. That's what I wrote. It says is exaggeration that representation of something in terms of that go beyond the facts. Meaning the facts really should stop where people become creative. That the facts are the facts. But they said that what happens is that people will add things to it. So then it becomes a caricature or an ornamental kind of situation, or where they've colored in, the other areas so that you don't see them, or they enhance areas that they want you to see. It says there's a stretching of the truth, and fabrication is one of the areas they talk about, padding and misrepresentation. I mean, how many of us have been to the point where we've seen misrepresentation? Um, we live long enough, we've seen it. We've experienced it. It could be on a personal note. It could be that a project you were given at work and you were given it, with two people on it, and then you find out that basically it's you. You're the person that's going to to finish it, but both people will get the credit. You know, I'm quite sure you you all have experienced that. But it is what it is. You know, it is what it is. So when we look at hyperbole, we look at it being all hype, that there's a yielding, either we're yielding to whatever they're saying, and we're picking it up as being something that we could adopt. The purple prose talks about that boastfulness that somehow or another becomes fruity. We like it, but it's an amplification of maybe what is bad, but we hear it as being good. It's exaggeration to the max, to the point where we understand it being good because they said it was good. There's a radicalness to it, meaning it moves far away from what it started as, and then next thing you have something else being built. Embellishments, yes. It says it's boastful, showing excessive pride. So we know that people will boast, about what it is that they can do. I've worked with some people who said that they got the jobs that they were in because they could do them, and then you work with them, they couldn't do it. So it works, I guess, sometimes to get where you want to go, but eventually I think it would be a problem. And then we have oral tunity, which is the formal word that talks about the voice in which it's being delivered. It's expressive. It's going to be in sounds and language that resonates with people. They hear it, they believe it, they love it, they enjoy it, and they buy. Either they buy the ideas or they buy something that may be actually something that they possess once they've paid a certain amount of money. And then, of course, it talks about it being lofty, which is high and towering above, and then it talks about it being an embellishment, basically totally exaggerated, fabricated, enhanced, misrepresented. So that is our word for today, hyperbole. Hyperbole. I don't know why I was getting tongue twisted with it earlier. I know it, the word, but I try to give you words that you haven't experienced, but they're running around right now. If you listen to some of the speeches that are being made from politicians, they talk about it being hyperbole. So now you have some resources for it, and look it up for yourself, and maybe some of these other words that I added. But it is a word that people have meaning. In fact, I think some of the simple ones of where they were talking about hyperbole is like when it says, I weigh a ton. You don't weigh a ton. Okay. I drank 5 gallons of water. So that's the kind of thing. If you want to make it really simple, then you understand, even from a child, you understand that it's been built on as a statement, but it doesn't necessarily have the truth that it is stating, But anyway, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful Monday. Let it be a good week for you. I have a couple things I'm going to do. And then I'm going to rest a bit. But I have some running around to do, and then I'm going to come back and rest and get ready for my Wednesday, as I always do. You as well. Oh, thank you, Maurice. You're always such a cool guy. I love you guys. Embellishment. But anyway, I was just reading what I have. But anyway, I will respond to you guys once I get off to my sections, because I'm telling you, sometimes I don't see these until later on. They don't always come when they're supposed to. And I don't know what that is. I don't know where is it Facebook, or is it something with StreamYard? But anyway, I love StreamYard because at least I can put these on all platforms at one time and not worry about it. I love you. Love you guys. So I will see you Wednesday, okay? Be safe. Have a good time. Hit that share button if you don't mind. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, okay? Bye-bye. Thank you.